Air France flight AF 726, soaring from Paris towards Ouagadougou, had settled into the comforting rhythm of an afternoon journey. For 3 hours, the journey had been a portrait of tranquility, hot drinks served, quiet conversations, the gentle hum of engines a lullaby to the diverse passengers, French tourists anticipating adventure, business people returning to duties, and Burkina citizens heading home. In seat 17B, by the window, a man in simple attire, a dark shirt, blue jeans, sporty shoes, and a baseball cap pulled low over sunglasses, observed the passing clouds. He blended in, an anonymous figure amidst the usual ebb and flow of air travel. Subscribe. We are already preparing the next hot issue for you. Then, without warning, the plane lurched, a sudden, violent turbulence shaking the cabin, sending trays rattling and murmurs rippling through the rows. Before anyone could fully process the unexpected jolt, a new sound cut through the air. A voice, amplified and chillingly calm, delivered an announcement that froze hearts. "We need your attention. The plane is now under our control." A collective gasp, quickly stifled, filled the cabin. Fear, cold and immediate, began to spread, tightening its grip on every passenger. Who were these unseen voices, and what terrifying reality had just descended upon them? The man in seat 17B, a figure of striking composure amid the burgeoning panic, was Ibrahim Traoré. Far from being an ordinary passenger, he was the transitional leader of Burkina Faso, returning from discreet diplomatic engagements in Paris. He had chosen this unassuming mode of travel, hoping to avoid the fanfare and security risks of official flights. Now, on board this hijacked aircraft, he found himself a hostage, alongside 182 other innocent lives. From the cockpit, the hijackers were already communicating their terms: a ransom of $10 million and the release of 3 individuals held at La Santé prison in France. These were their sole stated conditions, yet if they had known the true identity of the man sitting quietly in seat 17B, their demands, and indeed the entire trajectory of this crisis, would have undoubtedly been profoundly different. Within moments, the initial shock gave way to a more terrifying reality. A flight attendant, startled while serving hot drinks, suddenly saw 4 passengers rise. What she first mistook for a dispute quickly revealed itself as something far more sinister: the glint of metal, a weapon. Her tray clattered, hot tea splashing across the aisle, as a commanding voice, speaking Arabic with a distinct French accent, pierced the tension. "Nobody move. We've taken control of the plane. Follow instructions, and no one will face harm." Traoré, with the innate calm born of his security training and military background, knew these initial moments were paramount. Guns were now visible, raw panic was palpable, and violence could erupt as a tool for asserting dominion. 2 of the hijackers swiftly secured the cockpit, while the other pair strategically positioned themselves at either end of economy class, maintaining a watchful gaze over the subdued passengers. Whispers of prayer, hushed sobs, and a desperate clinging to personal devices filled the air, until a stern voice from the rear announced, "We will collect your phones, tablets, and all electronic devices. Do not resist, or the consequences will be severe." Traoré, his movements imperceptible, slipped his phone into the side pocket of the seat, noting that the hijackers, focused on establishing a chaotic initial authority, had not yet begun a systematic collection. The man who had emerged from the cockpit now stood before them, reiterating their demands with chilling clarity: $10 million and the release of 3 prisoners from La Santé prison in France. Meet our terms, and you will all be reunited with your homes. From his vantage point, Traoré studied the hijacker's eyes, tense, anxious, yet resolute. This was not the cold calculation of a seasoned operative, but the fevered conviction of someone driven by deeply held, perhaps misguided, beliefs. Hours began to stretch into an agonizing eternity as the plane, now off its scheduled course, circled ominously over Mali. The pilot, under the hijacker's stern command, was instructed to stay aloft, granting precious time for the negotiations unfolding on the ground. Traoré, maintaining his outward calm, keenly observed the fear etched on the faces of those around him. Beside him, an elderly Burkina woman trembled visibly, her anxiety a silent tremor. A few rows ahead, a mother struggled to soothe her 2 small children, their innocent confusion contrasting sharply with the grim reality. Across the aisle, 3 French businessmen whispered frantically, their voices low but laced with palpable worry. Don't worry, Traoré quietly assured the elderly woman beside him, his voice a low, steady comfort. Everything will be all right. We will all return home. The woman, tears welling in her eyes, looked at him with a glimmer of fragile hope, asking, "You're Burkinab, aren't you, my son?" "Yes, mother," he replied, his confidence unwavering. "We will all return home." The fragile calm shattered once more when a hijacker emerged from the cockpit, his hushed, urgent conversation with another revealing their mounting frustration. Something was amiss with the negotiations. With a sudden, terrifying decision, one of the hijackers seized a passenger, a middle-aged French man, and began roughly dragging him toward the cockpit. "The negotiations are not being taken seriously," he roared, his voice filled with desperate fury. "Perhaps if we send them a hostage, they will listen more carefully." It was at this critical juncture that Ibrahim Traoré faced a profound choice. He could reveal his true identity, offering himself as the most valuable asset, potentially saving the other passengers but undoubtedly plunging his nation into an international crisis of unprecedented scale. Or, he could remain silent, allowing the grim situation to unfold. He decided to act, but with one final, cunning move before fully revealing himself. "Stop," he called out, his voice strong, yet resonating with a calming authority. "You know that negotiations require time. Hasty decisions can lead to unfortunate outcomes for everyone." The hijacker spun around, surprise flashing across his face, and immediately leveled his weapon at Traoré. "Who are you to tell me what to do?" he demanded. "I'm just a passenger," Traoré responded, his gaze steady, "but I understand how negotiations work. Resorting to violence only makes it more difficult for you to achieve your objectives." The hijacker hesitated, then slowly approached Traoré, his gun still pointed. "Why are you so confident? Who are you?" Traoré, without uttering a single untruth, replied, "I merely worked as a diplomat. I know how agreements are forged. If you wish, I can assist with the negotiation." The hijacker paused, conferring swiftly in a mix of Arabic and French with his three companions. Finally, their apparent leader nodded. "All right, diplomat," he sneered, a mocking tone in his voice. "Show us your skill. Come to the cockpit." Traoré rose with an almost unnerving composure, his eyes never leaving the hijackers. As he slowly made his way forward, passengers watched with bated breath, the elderly woman he passed whispering, "May divine protection be upon you, my son." Stepping into the cockpit, Traoré found the pilot and co-pilot at the controls, their faces etched with exhaustion and tension. One of the hijackers was already managing radio communications. "Who is this?" the French negotiator on the other end of the line immediately queried upon seeing Traoré. "A diplomat," the leader hijacker interjected, "he's going to assist with the negotiation." Suspicion laced the negotiator's voice. "Is this a trap? Have you brought a hostage?" "No," Traoré responded calmly, his voice clear and measured. "I am simply a passenger, and my sole desire is for this situation to be resolved peacefully, for everyone to return home safely." His mind already strategizing his next move, Traoré understood he first needed to grasp the hijacker's true objectives. First, he stated, addressing both the negotiator, via the hijacker, and Yusuf, everyone needs to remain calm. What is the ultimate goal? The release of 3 individuals and monetary compensation, is that correct? Yes, Yusuf, the leader, affirmed. Our brothers are held in Lasante. We demand their return. And who are these brothers of yours? Traoré inquired, his tone carefully neutral. Malik al-Zim, Riyad Hamoudi, and Omar Banani, Yusuf declared. They are not terrorists, they are freedom fighters. They were falsely accused of supporting the Tuareg uprising in Mali. These names resonated immediately with Traoré. While officially accused of assaulting French military installations, these figures had also become symbols of resistance against perceived French neo-colonial policies across West Africa. I see, Traoré acknowledged. And the purpose of the money? For continued struggle, Yusuf stated, his voice hardening, until France's presence in Africa is completely eradicated. Traoré now fully comprehended the profound ideological drive behind these men. Anti-colonial sentiments ran deep across Africa, particularly in the western regions. He himself shared similar convictions, though certainly not through violent means. May I know your names? Traoré pressed gently. I am Yusuf, the leader replied. These are my brothers, Hakim, Jamal, and Ahmed. Yusuf, Traoré began, I can help with this negotiation, but we must understand the realities. Hostage situations are typically protracted and complex. Governments, especially France, are under immense pressure not to appear to yield to acts of terror. We are not terrorists, Yusuf retorted, his anger flaring. We simply demand justice. We are fighting against the colonialists who drain Africa's lifeblood. Traoré nodded in understanding. I comprehend your frustration. Have you considered alternative approaches? Perhaps a political declaration, or an appeal to an international court? We tried those avenues, Yusuf replied, a bitter weariness in his voice. No one listened. My brothers have been imprisoned for 7 years. We could not wait any longer. Traoré's strategy was crystallizing. These were not hardened, professional criminals, but ideologically fervent young men driven to desperation. Perhaps they could be reasoned with. Consider this, Traoré continued, subtly pushing. Even if your demands were met, what is your exit strategy? How do you plan to escape? Have you thought through that? Yusuf and the others exchanged uncertain glances. Their plan, it seemed, was far from fully developed. We intend to land in Mali and cross the border from there, Yusuf admitted, his voice lacking conviction. They will apprehend you immediately, Traoré stated directly, seeing the flicker of uncertainty in Yusuf's eyes. Special forces will be waiting wherever the plane touches down. But perhaps there is an alternative, Traoré proposed, sensing his opening. I can act as a mediator. We could bring the prisoners' situation to an international platform without resorting to violence. It's too late, Yusuf insisted, shaking his head. We have already embarked on this path. There's no retreat. There is always a way back, Traoré countered, lowering his voice, but first, the passengers must be safe. At that very moment, a voice from the cockpit radio cut through. The French negotiator. Yusuf, the voice began, we are evaluating your demands, but we require more time to establish trust. Perhaps you could release some hostages, the children, the elderly? Yusuf pondered this for a moment, then nodded. Okay, we can release the children and the elderly. But first, I demand fuel. The plane will need fuel for landing, the negotiator responded. Head to Bamako Airport in Mali. You can release the children and the elderly there. Yusuf agreed. Traoré observed Yusuf, noting the man's inexperience. Landing in Bamako, he knew, meant surrendering control. Special forces would be poised, and an operation would become inevitable the moment the plane was grounded. As the plane began to alter its course towards Bamako, Ibrahim Traoré, still in the cockpit, watched Yusuf and his companions. Their hushed conversations grew more frequent, their collective tension visibly mounting. Are you truly confident about this? Traoré asked calmly, addressing Yusuf. When you land in Bamako, you will lose all control. What do you mean? Yusuf replied, suspicion creeping into his voice. When you land for fuel, special forces will be prepared, Traoré explained. They will initiate an operation. This will be the end for you and your friends. A tremor of fear appeared in Yusuf's eyes. Then what do you propose? Traoré knew this was the critical juncture, demanding the right sequence of actions. First step. Change of route. Head to Niger, not Mali. French influence is less there. Second, regarding the hostages. You agreed to release the children and the elderly. Let's do that, but remain in the air. Third, refine your demands. Better conditions for the prisoners, a fair trial, international observers. These might be achievable. Yusuf considered this for a long moment. Why should I trust you? Perhaps you are a French operative. Traoré offered a faint smile. I am African, just like you. And believe me, I share many of your sentiments regarding France's role in Africa. My methods, however, are simply different. Traoré's logical, reasoned suggestions appeared to have a profound effect on Yusuf. The man left the cockpit to consult with his companions. For a few minutes, Ibrahim was alone with only the pilot and co-pilot. Who are you, truly? The pilot whispered, his voice filled with quiet awe. A Frenchman? Traoré simply replied, just a passenger trying to help. No, you're different, the pilot insisted. You speak like someone with military training. Traoré offered no verbal answer, merely a subtle, knowing smile. A few minutes later, Yusuf and the others returned to the cockpit. We accept your plan, Yusuf declared. We will head to Niger. We will remain airborne, and we will release the children. How? Traoré inquired. What do you mean, how? Yusuf responded, confused. How will you release the children in the air? Traoré clarified. Will you simply eject them with parachutes? The blank expression on Yusuf's face clearly indicated he hadn't considered this vital detail. Perhaps we can build trust in an alternative manner, Traoré suggested. For instance, you could film a video showing that the children and the elderly on board are in good condition, and then transmit it. Yusuf found this suggestion entirely logical and readily accepted. Ibrahim Traoré was steadily, subtly, gaining Yusuf's confidence. It was becoming increasingly clear that Yusuf's planning had overlooked many critical nuances of such an operation. "We are heading to Niger instead of Mali," Yusuf announced to the negotiator on the radio, his voice now more assured. "And we will transmit a video confirming the children's well-being." The negotiator, evidently taken aback by this sudden alteration, responded, "I understand, but all preparations were made in Mali." "Plans have changed," Yusuf retorted sharply. "We will refuel in Niger. We will remain airborne until our demands are addressed." Traoré, standing beside Yusuf, then spoke in a low voice, "Now, you should reassure the passengers. You do not wish to incite panic. Perhaps you could distribute water and food, a gesture of goodwill." Yusuf considered this, then agreed. Returning to the cabin, he instructed 2 of his men to distribute water and snacks. Simultaneously, he ordered the children brought to the front section of the plane to film the video proving their good condition. When Traoré re-entered the cabin, he saw the raw fear reflected in the passengers' eyes. The elderly woman beside him gazed at him anxiously. "What is happening, my son?" she whispered. "Negotiations are ongoing," Traoré replied calmly, his voice a steadying presence. "Do not be afraid. We are moving in a positive direction. The children will be brought forward, and a video will be recorded to show that they are safe and well." 6 children, ranging from 3 to 11 years old, along with their mothers, were led to the front of the plane. All of them looked visibly frightened, their mothers desperately trying to calm them. Traoré stepped forward, approaching the small group. Kneeling down to their eye level, he spoke in a soft, gentle voice. "Hello, my name is Ibrahim. What are your names?" Hesitantly, the children began to share their names. Traoré listened to each one, offering a warm smile. "You might be a little scared," he said, "but everything will be perfectly fine. Now, shall we play a game? We will record a video to show that you are well. This way, you will be able to return home very soon." The children, clearly affected by Traoré's calm and trustworthy demeanor, gradually began to relax. Traoré turned to Yusuf. "It is essential to comfort them," he advised. "Scared children, panicked mothers, this only exacerbates the difficulty of the situation." Yusuf nodded slowly. "Have you experienced this before?" he asked, a hint of genuine curiosity in his tone. "I've undergone crisis management training," Traoré responded truthfully, careful not to reveal the full scope of his identity. The video was then recorded. Under Traoré's gentle guidance, the children waved to the camera, reassuring viewers they were fine. The footage was promptly sent to the negotiators. Hours continued to pass, the plane endlessly tracing circles in Nigerian airspace. The dwindling fuel supply became a stark, ticking clock. Ibrahim Traoré returned to Yusuf's side. "What now?" he prompted. "Fuel is limited. A moment of decision is fast approaching." Yusuf looked deeply worried. "What do I do if they don't meet my demands?" "Think," Traoré urged. "What do you genuinely hope to achieve? The release of your brothers? That may not be a realistic immediate outcome. But perhaps improving their conditions? A fair trial? International observers? These might be attainable." Yusuf pondered these words, the weight of his desperate act pressing down on him. "Perhaps you're right," he admitted, "but if I back down now, everything will have been in vain." "No," Traoré countered firmly. "You are not backing down. You are evolving your strategy. You are acting more intelligently." Just then, the voice of the French negotiator crackled over the radio. "Yusuf, an update. An agreement has been reached to form a commission to review the situation of the imprisoned individuals. Furthermore, measures will be taken to ensure they are held in improved conditions, though their immediate release is not feasible at this time." Yusuf looked to Traoré, uncertain. "What should I do?" "This is a start," Traoré advised. "Now, you should negotiate the conditions for a safe landing and the release of the remaining hostages." "What about us?" Yusuf asked, a tremor of apprehension in his voice. "What will become of us?" Traoré had increasingly realized that this man had not fully considered the consequences of the drastic action he had initiated. They were not hardened criminals, but young men driven by intense ideological fervor, lacking the foresight of seasoned operatives. If you resolve this situation peacefully now, Traoré explained, this will significantly aid your position in any subsequent legal proceedings. You have not employed violence, you have harmed no one. This is a crucial distinction. Yusuf and his friends conversed among themselves, their faces a mixture of desperation and nascent hope. Finally, Yusuf nodded. Okay, he said into the radio. You have promised a commission and improved conditions. Now, let us discuss a safe landing and our situation. The negotiator sounded visibly relieved. Of course, you can land at Niamey Airport. Everyone's safety will be ensured there. Wait a moment, Traoré interjected, leaning closer to Yusuf. When you land in Niamey, special forces will be waiting for you. You shouldn't take that risk. Then what do you propose? Yusuf asked, his suspicion rekindled. Instead of Niamey, land in Ouagadougou, Traoré suggested. In Burkina Faso. There, you can continue negotiations. It would be a more neutral ground. Yusuf looked wary. Why Burkina Faso? Is it not under France's influence? Traoré allowed a knowing smile to play on his lips. No, not anymore. Burkina Faso is currently pursuing an independent policy. France's influence has significantly lessened. As the plane began its final approach toward Ouagadougou, Traoré prepared for the climactic phase. Yusuf, he said, his voice carrying the weight of the moment, when we land, you will be surrounded by forces. But if you surrender peacefully, you will not be harmed. They will imprison us, Yusuf stated, resignation in his tone. Yes, Traoré affirmed, but you will survive, and you will have a genuine opportunity to improve your brother's situation. Yusuf, after a prolonged moment of internal struggle, finally nodded. Let's land and release the hostages. The plane gently touched down at Ouagadougou Airport. Special forces were indeed visible, strategically positioned, yet not aggressively approaching. First, the children and elderly passengers were permitted to disembark, hurrying down the stairs into the waiting arms of emergency personnel. Now, I wish to leave as well, Traoré stated to Yusuf. Why? How can you continue to assist us? Yusuf questioned, confusion clouding his features. The time had come. With deliberate movements, Traoré removed his sunglasses, then his baseball cap. His eyes, clear and resolute, met Yusuf's. Because, he stated, his voice calm, firm, and resonating with an undeniable authority, I am Ibrahim Traoré, President of Burkina Faso. Yusuf's face contorted, morphing from utter shock into profound disbelief, then into pure horror. Impossible, he stammered, reeling from the revelation. It is true, Traoré confirmed, his composure unwavering. And now, I want to help you. If you surrender peacefully, I personally guarantee your safety. You will receive a fair trial here, in Burkina Faso. Yusuf's hand instinctively darted towards his weapon, a desperate, irrational thought flashing through his mind. Perhaps we should retain you as a hostage. The most valuable hostage. You could, Traoré responded fearlessly, his gaze unflinching. But consider the immediate consequences outside this aircraft. Burkina Faso's special forces are poised. Harming a head of state would not conclude favorably for you or your companions. After a long, agonizing moment, the internal battle evident on his face, Yusuf slowly, reluctantly, lowered his weapon. What do you wish for us to do? He asked, his voice subdued. Relinquish your weapons, release the remaining hostages, and exit the plane peacefully with me, Traoré instructed. I assure you, you will not face harm. Yusuf and his friends, their defiance broken, reluctantly agreed. The remaining passengers were informed they could safely disembark. Ibrahim Traoré led the way, with Yusuf and his companions following him out of the aircraft. When he emerged onto the tarmac, the special forces, who had maintained their distance, were utterly stunned to see their president. Sir, you were on the plane? An officer exclaimed, disbelief plain in his voice. Yes, Traoré replied calmly, surveying the scene. And I have personally guaranteed these men's safety. They are surrendering peacefully. Hours later, Ibrahim Traoré stood before a global audience at a press conference held within the presidential palace. Today, he declared, his voice resonating with clarity and conviction, we witnessed the stark difference between coercion and diplomacy. These young men sought to champion what they perceived as a just cause, albeit through misguided methods. Yet, in the end, dialogue and mutual understanding prevailed. When queried why he had not disclosed his identity sooner, Traoré explained, revealing my status prematurely could have significantly complicated the situation. My paramount objective was to prevent any loss of life, and in that, we succeeded." A journalist then inquired about the deepest lesson he had gleaned from the harrowing experience. "Violence is never the path forward," Traoré responded thoughtfully. "Dialogue, understanding, and empathy are our most potent instruments. And a leader, truly, should live among their people, as one of them. For genuine power resides not within palace walls, but in the collective spirit and resolve of the populace." As the press conference concluded, the world buzzed with discussions of Ibrahim Traoré's extraordinary courage and profound wisdom. A potentially catastrophic crisis had been transformed into an invaluable lesson in astute leadership, and once again, Burkina Faso stood as a shining symbol of African dignity and self-determination.